Todd, well, you know everybody at the table.
I do, it's great to be with y'all. You know, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir here a little bit because y'all are we've gone through this, 2 years now? Twice around, so there's gonna be a lot since the,
No, it's just close to it.
the reason I'm kind of moving around is I don't have a screen up here and I'm trying to look at that one over there.
Yeah, just give me a moment, we'll.
Is it big?
Is that one repaired?
Everybody make sure their mics are on too.
So anyway, it's not gonna be anything new to you when, just one, and I'll try to, I'll respect your time. I'm not gonna run across a whole lot of stuff that we've already been over, that you already understand. But because the charter just hasn't, we haven't had any amendments to our city charter. And, there are a couple of interesting questions as they come up. So there we are. The city's got all the powers of self-governing, and I think we talked about this a little bit. And one of the things that we mentioned was the legislature reluctantly passed these self-governing, parts of the city to make it, a self-governing group, and then they've been attacking those ever since. So it's got all the powers of the self-government, not otherwise prohibited by this charter or by the general laws, and those general laws are the things that take it back.
Did you turn it on?
Yeah, you flipped it one time.
Okay.
I did.
You got it backwards.
All right.
There you go, that might help you. And then forward and back.
Well, I don't know where to aim it.
It should just be anywhere. Should be able to walk all the way out to the, I don't know, should be. You got lots of gremlins today.
Yeah. Electronics. What I can do, let me just get my computer in the meantime.
I'll just advance it for you, Mr. Jimmy.
Real advanced for you.
Actually, it
Okay,
doesn't seem to.
next slide.
There we go.
And that's, however, we have those limitations, and the word is preempted. Anything that is preempted by the state takes it away from the power of the local government. We deal with this on a federal level all the time because there are laws like environmental laws, there are laws that federal motor vehicle safety standards, and the question is always, and I've been to the U.S. Supreme Court on this issue, is whether or not this particular law preempted the state law. And of course, my theory, my argument to the court always is that preemption ought to be very strictly construed because some unelected bureaucrat can sign a regulation after the notice of proposed rulemaking and do away with 200 years of Georgia common law with no accountability whatever to anybody. So preemption to me is a word that calls for self-restraint. It should call for self-restraint on the part of the legislature. It should call for self-restraint on the part of the regulators. But we're going to see where we have a preemption situation as a result of the last election. We'll talk about that in a minute. What else do we, the next slide. So fewer jurisdictions equal Georgia's adamant reluctance to make home rule here. And we're still living with that. A lot, and it's really interesting because if you look at the red and blue map of Georgia, we've got a lot of rural people that cling to independence, that think independently, but it is those very same elected officials that are up there passing these laws that are taking power away from the city and the counties, the local governments. Next paragraph, next slide there. So anyway, I think I told you this last time, anytime a question comes up, all of these issues of preemption and so forth, I call it the municipal lawyers relief bill. It means pick up the phone, call the lawyer, see if you can do this. Next. Next slide.
Yes, sir.
So we're creatures of the legislature, and I'm not gonna spend a lot of time with that, we've already talked about it. I'll say it one more time, so it works.
There you go.
It is,
Yeah.
okay? All right. This is the Election Integrity Act. I'm gonna get closer where I can read this, because this is a preemption issue. This is Senate Bill 202. One of the sponsors was Barry Fleming, who represents a whole lot of cities. And he hasn't quite gotten away with it. Some of the cities and counties have said, you've taken some of our power, you're fired. But this has to do with our election, and you know, we have a contract with the county to handle our municipal elections, but it affects us because what they do to the county, they're doing to the city. If they don't like what's going on, and somebody makes a complaint, this is what they can do. After following the procedures set forth in Code Section 2-2-32.2, which is a little complaint thing, which really calls for a hearing, but the hearing, it doesn't amount to a bill of beans. But after one of these hearings, the state election board may suspend county or municipal superintendents and appoint an individual to serve as a temporary superintendent in a jurisdiction. This appointed individual by this election board shall exercise all the powers and duties of a superintendent as provided by law, including the authority to make all personnel decisions related to any employees of the jurisdiction who assist with carrying out the duties of superintendent. So they can fire all of that superintendent's folks, put their own crew in there if they want to. Related to employees of the jurisdiction who assist with carrying out the duties of the superintendent, including but not limited to the director of elections, the election supervisor, and all the poll officers. The thing that concerns, and I'm not going to get into the politics of all of this because that's not what's important. What's important is for you to know that the state legislature has set up a situation where these legislators, now this is the state election board, here's that petition for review, but I wanted to show you the highlighted part. All of that first part looks real good till you get down to the yellow. The governing authority of a county or municipality as applicable following a recommendation based on an investigation by the Performance Review Board may petition the state election board to the Secretary of State for extraordinary relief. So it says, well, you know, a county can do that, but the state election board on its own motion, following a recommendation based on an investigation by a Performance Review Board pursuant to Part 5, may pursue the extraordinary relief. So whether the county or the city makes this petition or not, somebody can go up to the State Election Review Board and make this complaint. The State Election Review Board can decide to fire or suspend the local election officials. It is right interesting that in the politics of this thing, that, well, we can't suspend more than 4. Well, guess what? Atlanta, Fulton, Chatham, Muskogee,
They can't suspend more than 4 counties,
they can't suspend more than 4 at any one time.
4
Because
jurisdictions.
they could take four election officials out and replace them. Here's the thing about that. We have a partisan election, I don't care whether it's more Democrat or more Republican, I'm not talking about party politics. What happens is the state election board is now going to be majority of whoever's in the state legislature because of the way it's composed. And if you remember, Raffensperger had a hard time. He got a lot of flack because he certified the election. Every complaint that came up, he investigated it, said there was nothing nothing wrong. I don't know, I'll give you an example. They asked him to review the ballots, do a ballot audit in Cobb County because somebody was complaining about Cobb. I don't know why he was complaining about Cobb. But what they found was out of 15,000 ballots they checked, one was wrong because a lady had signed for herself and her husband.
Right.
Wow.
I saw that.
But the point is not that. The point is that because Raffensperger reacted, it's hard to keep a guy still when he's used to walking around in a courtroom, isn't it? Thank you. Because Raffensperger had reacted to the COVID by sending out additional ballots, Speaker Royston had this law that this law now says that no longer is the constitutionally elected Secretary of State the chairman of the state elections board. He is an ex officio non-voting member. And Royston, I knew something like that was coming up when I heard Royston right after the election say, well, I've always said we need to appoint the secretary. Secretary of State doesn't need to be elected. But anyway, this is a preemptive thing, and whether it's good or bad or whichever party is in a majority, it took away the accountability because none of these people on this board are accountable to an electorate like the Secretary of State is. So that's one thing that we can look for. I do not, frankly, foresee any problem. I don't see anybody suspending anybody here locally, but that's just an example of the legislature taking powers back that were once given to the locals.
This has not been, this act or the parts thereof have not been tested in court.
No, there are about 5 lawsuits up here, and I was going to mention this very briefly. A lawyer called me because they're trying to get a couple of counties around here to fire Barry Fleming. And I'll talk to you about that. Well, we'll go ahead and talk about it right now, and I'll just skip it when I get there because it's a good time to talk about it. It has to do, the big fight over Barry is that Putnam and Greensboro are saying we are not going to talk about our city attorney outside of an executive session. Of course, you know, if you vote to hire or fire him, you got to vote that in public. But the thing is, the executive session exception says employees or officers. Our charter makes the city attorney and the judge an officer of the city. This lawyer went out and talked to a First Amendment group, and they said, oh no, an outside contractor is not subject to or considered as personnel. She called me and I said, well, you know, it makes sense if an outside contractor would not be, but let me do some research. And when I was getting ready for this, I did that research and I sent a note out and I said, look, I don't know what the city charters say, but I do know that the exception to, one of the exceptions to open meetings is the personnel discussion. In a personnel discussion, it says officers and personnel. They didn't like that, but you know, the law is what it is. There are about 5 cases out there challenging it, and I'm just gonna say in passing, I've been approached, the city attorney, and what I've done is I've referred them to, I said, if you wanna come talk to the mayor and council about this, that's fine. Check in with the city manager. But there is an approach to Madison to join another lawsuit. And I've got an executive summary of that lawsuit, but I'm not gonna get into it because I don't want us to, have any action on anything like that. But I'm just telling you, there is a lawsuit trying to get cities together to challenge this because of the preemption section. There are other challenges to the act, basically some voter groups, churches, and other groups like that. But if the cities get into the act, a city would have standing to challenge this. But there's about 5 cases out there right now. So we talked about who's in charge. The corporate powers and municipal government of said cities shall vest in and consist of the mayor and council. Remember, we talked about y'all being the board of directors. And the first thing you have out of the chute here is we talk about the council. It's mandatory to have a city manager because we're city management form of government. The nice thing about that is having a city manager, it takes all of the daily operations of everything off of your shoulders. What we do here in the city council is you make policy, you pass ordinances, and you have hearings to enforce certain of those ordinances, such as the zoning ordinances and those sorts of things. And recently, I think we just amended the parking ordinance to include residents in reaction to the fact that we now have some upstairs residences around the square, just like we have businesses. I was kind of proud of David. I can't say this at the office, David. I had one of my staff had a foot operation, and she wanted to get a chance to park out in front. David said no.
Just a hard-hearted hound.
Yeah, but you make an exception like that. What you've done is you've just torn the fabric of the act. So, is it going to be enforced? That was done not at my request or suggestion, David.
Yeah, I totally understand. It's not the first request I've gotten that way. And it probably won't be the
But
last.
the point is, he took the heat because that's part of his job. So he's the chief executive officer. We talked all about that. We talked about the chain of command. It says that even the city council members don't approach the staff except through David, and the reason is we have to have a central person that these people know who the boss is. And many good ideas as we have, and as many things that we might see wrong, calling the maintenance department saying, hey, the trash hadn't been picked up at 202 North Main Street. That's David's job. If you want to talk about the trash, call David and let him talk to the right folks. So anyway, that's.
Mr. Carter, if a city council approaches staff members, 9 times out of 10, that staff member will go ahead and talk to that councilman and answer that question, because they feel like if they don't,
Right.
it's a bad feeling between them and the council.
Right. And one of the best answers to some of that is I will check with David, or give David a call and see what he says. And sometimes, depending on what level of discussion that is, sometimes you may have to just say, look, we're a city manager form of government. That's not something that we're allowed to do by our charter. Talk to David. Of course, David reports to the council, and if David's not doing his job, he can certainly be, reprimanded or done whatever we need to, whatever you need to do, instructed or requested or whatever. But it's still, and you get that all the time. One of the things that I've learned over the years is, and it's an old Navy thing, military leadership. I don't know whether anybody served in the military. Loyalty up and down the chain of command is a very important principle. What that means is that when we're in a group, we can express our personal opinions, but we can't commit the group. Or when, of course, we're on our open meetings, everybody's going to know who said what anyhow. But say, it's all right to say, I oppose this, but it passed and I support it. But that chain of command is, we've discussed that and it's important. So these are the city manager's duties. We've gone over that in a nutshell. He runs the city subject to the supervision and oversight of the mayor and council. You can see I had 4 slides worth of duties. I don't know how you get it all done. And here's the point in the charter, section 3E. Elected officials are to deal with the city officers solely through the city manager. So we can't call Philip Malcolm and give him a job to do, because the city manager gives him that job. In that respect, it's right interesting that in the condemnation of unfit dwellings, the law specifically says, our charter specifically says, that if that inspection is made, it's reported to the city manager, and the city manager is the one who gives me and Philip the authority to proceed with that condemnation. And it's really important because we're dealing with private property here. And this is called an in rem action. It's different from where a personal action is like when you sue somebody. An in rem action is when you're suing the property. And you're condemning that piece of property. So that if it's not torn down or remedied by the owner, the city has a right to come in and either tear it down or repair it, and it makes a lien on the property. So that if you had to foreclose that lien, you could sell the property to get the city paid back. But it's a very, like all condemnations, it has a very strict procedure that has to be followed. And like we said in our last couple of times through here, it's just common sense. And there's an exception, if the city manager doesn't do what he's supposed to, the city council have a right to give orders to such officers, employees, or publicly or privately. Here's the thing that we had a lot of trouble with this. I think it's been ironed out, but it was a lot of issues through some of the zoning conflicts. I don't know whether y'all remember that, where the city has a right to ask any commission that you appoint to conduct an investigation. And some of that worked its way into the zoning laws, and we got crossed up with the wording of the zoning law and the desire of the city
to not make somebody have to do something twice or start and spend a lot of money and find out that they weren't gonna get what they wanted. But I have not heard anything from that. I think that Monica and Ken and others got that worked out. And as far as I know, it's running smoothly.
Just a comment on that, I think it may be partially a side effect of the fact that the Historic Preservation Commission does their job so well, and they've been at it for 30 years, and they've got a long track record. They're not punitive, and they're not overly restrictive, but they do a good job. But folks who have their own agenda within the district want to use the HPC to get at their agenda.
Right, that's right.
So they were say, well, HPC should have purview over zoning, over variances, over subdivisions, over, everything. And that gets to be rather complicated.
It does. We have that, everything. If you're on a church board, somebody comes up and says, we need a vision for this church. I read that to say, I want y'all to adopt my vision for this church.
Sorry.
I'm ready for the next slide.
Is it not?
Okay, with these, we've run through these many, many times. I don't need to take a whole lot of time to do this, but the mayor presides at all the meetings. He's the head of the city for the purpose of service of process. If anybody sues the city, they serve the mayor. He's got the power to administer oath, to take sworn statements known as affidavits, sign documents, debate questions before the mayor and council in all matters except as to the appointment of the mayor pro tem. He only votes in the case of a tie. So, what's left for the council members? Council members have power and authority to make, ordain, and establish from time to time bylaws, ordinances, resolutions, a whole bunch of things. Provide for the good government, security, and interest of the city and the inhabitants, and for preserving the health, morals, peace, and good order of the same. I bet y'all didn't know when you first came on that you're responsible for helping preserve the morals of the city. Next slide. So these are the tools that we use. If that were here, I wouldn't be wandering around so much. We know that the city can, you can borrow money, you can make repairs, you can make contracts. You hold title to all the real property belonging to the city for the good purposes and interests that they were set aside for. You can take gifts, you can purchase, you can retain these with or within or without the territorial jurisdiction. And that's the point, within and without the territorial jurisdiction. If you recall the airport, we're acquiring property, that part of it is in the county. And we got a resolution from the county authorizing us to condemn that property. There was a big fight over that, and the constitutionality of it was decided basically out of the Atlanta airport. The city of Hapeville said, they were expanding the airport, and they condemned land down in Hapeville. And Hapeville filed a lawsuit saying stop, and the court said this is a power of eminent domain given to a city, and they can condemn the land even though it's not within their territorial limits, so long as it's for a public purpose of that city.
Interesting one, not exactly related to that, but that'll be coming up again. We've all seen the local, the take on Buckhead and Buckhead City, and it'll be very interesting to see how and whether a part of one city can then excise itself from an established city. And the legislature will probably vote. I would think the chances are that they will approve that, whether the voters choose to do that or not, which it's interesting. There was that same I can't remember the city in south of Atlanta that wanted to carve out part of an existing city.
Eagles
Was that-
Landing
Was
or
it
something?
Eagles Landing maybe, but they wanted to take the choicest, most expensive real estate out
That's
of an
right.
existing city
That's right.
and carve and make it part of a new city. So
Right.
it's a new dawn with one city and how it operates with another city. It's not to say that it couldn't happen to a
Right.
small. If Madison Lakes decided they wanted to become a municipality and they wanted to reach across and annex up and then take the interchange at I-20, it'd be the same thing.
Wow.
So you
Yeah.
need that tax base.
That's right, which basically, you got a big golf course community becoming a city.
Yeah.
Was that the Eagles Landing?
I think that was Eagles Land. I just said Madison Lakes. They don't get, don't.
If you go
There's
down-
nobody out there screaming
Don't get
about
caught
it.
there.
I think they like where they are, but it's
Eagles
just,
Landing's out in Atlanta, I'm not getting caught up.
Yeah,
Well,
but
we're
you
talking
might-
about Buckhead also, and Johns
David was-
Creek. Johns Creek is another example. where-
that's right.
Johns Creek was the one I was thinking also.
Right.
But
Yeah.
a few years ago, a former elected official, this reminds me of the home rule versus the powers vested and from on high from the
Right.
legislature. We had a mayor who said, "We exist at the pleasure of the legislature." And if the legislature wants to change the charter, regardless of what the city wants, they can do it. That's preemption. That's another
Yes.
perfect, no, they did not do that, and they didn't try to do that.
But they have this rule of comity where one legislature scratches the back of the other. Somebody come up and say, well, we want to get this municipality started over here. And they say, well, this is my district. Well, okay. They don't care. You want a new municipal corporation? Okay. We'll give you one. It happens too often that way. So the council presides over the mayor. The council presided over by the mayor makes the rules, appoints the city manager to run the town, and he's the only boss of the people that work for the city. We talked about meetings, and I'm just going to mention this. I think it's one of my last slides because I was adding on some of the things that we had said we were going to talk about here. Okay, meetings. The question is, right now we're under an emergency order, attending remotely. We've been doing some of that. We've been meeting remotely and so forth. If you look at the charter says, and this charter was written now back in 2006. So there was no COVID. I don't think Zoom was around. I think GoToMeeting was because we were using some of that. But the thing is that when this was written, it said the members of the city council will attend the meeting unless for some reason they just can't make it. And of course, depending on who makes it and who doesn't, you either have a quorum or you don't. So my thinking is that rather than have some of our laws challenged until we have cases, and I looked through the cases on attending meetings remotely, and of course private corporations do that all the time. Private corporations can even send around a consent without a meeting as long as it receives a requisite majority. But for right now, rather than having anything challenged, our quorum ought to be in person after this emergency is over. One thing that I would recommend, though, just and I think y'all will do that anyway. I know I would. If I'm out and I can't be at a meeting, as long as I can get a remote connection in here, I'm going to be there so I can answer a question because I don't have a vote,
Right.
or at least know what went on. So, if after this thing is over, some of this gets tested, or as the law evolves, it may be that a city council member can be absent. It's probably not a good idea from a political point of view because, you know, the public probably expects us all to be here at all the meetings. And even though they remote in, whether we still going to stream the meetings or not is going to be
Yes.
your decision. And
Yeah, the decision to start streaming meetings was done previous to COVID. So
And that's,
I think the
and that's
decision-
that's a good tool for the public, and I know how y'all feel about the public knowing what's going on.
Plus, didn't the legislature this past session enact a law, something to do with virtual meetings that kind of codified the ability to have virtual meetings? I think I saw one of the GMA emails mentioning that.
You know, there was a GMA email on that, but I could not find that on the website. for
Oh, really?
GMA. Yeah, virtual meetings, you know, you could have all kind of virtual meetings. The question is, what did we do when we go back to our charter that simply says, you're expected to attend the meeting. And of course, we go back to look at a lawyer who's going to say, well, what does attend mean? How do you attend? Now we attend in different ways. So can we technically attend the meeting without being physically present? Yes. We've talked about in the past that Robert's rules have been adopted in our charter to the extent that that they work. Talked about zoning hearings, you know, those have been going very smoothly as far as the procedure has been. Of course, we haven't had anything that was a real hot item of controversy. But the staff gets up, makes their report. Then the applicant gets up and makes their statement. And then we hear from those who support that, then we hear from those who oppose it. And then there's a vote. The applicant has a summary, but they have to reserve some of their allotted time in order to make that summary.
I, having served as planning commission secretary and I've been more than enough zoning hearings, the greatest advance in that has been a timer.
Yes.
And follow the law, because there's nothing that can be covered in 15 minutes, whether it's one person or five. Because I've been in marathon meetings where the public would just try to sway the body by the sheer numbers. Same comment. So I think zoning hearings are not dreaded the way they used to be, because you knew that there was a finite.
Right.
The council could open it up to a lot more discussion, and that does
Right.
happen. But the ad nauseum addition to what's already been said, just sheer numbers, doesn't happen anymore. At least
Right.
here it doesn't.
Right. And the one thing that could run amok is the public comment thing. In our charter, it says you can't talk for over 10 minutes. Well, you know, how many people can talk for 10 minutes? But I think the mayor would know from church, few souls are saved after 20 minutes. We talked about compensation in the past, and we've actually passed that, unless there's a question on that. So this is it. This is our charter. Duty to attend. It shall be the duty of each member of the city council to attend each meeting of the city council unless he is prevented by some unavoidable circumstances. You can tell how old that is because it says he. So it's actually politically incorrect, but it's certainly anticipated in-person attendance. And until we have some clarification on that, that's going to be my recommendation. And I will keep track of that. And I'll call Rashi and talk to him a little bit about it too, because it's very difficult to do. I've done word searches not only on the internet, but I've done them on my Westlaw, and Westlaw has all of the Georgia law on it, every act that's been passed, and coming up with permitting a city council member to attend remotely outside of an emergency, it just has not come up yet. I think it's premature because of the crisis that we're under right now. So the duty to attend, this should be the duty of each member of the city council to attend each meeting of the city council unless he's prevented by unavoidable circumstances. I just tagged that on this, what I just told you on that slide. This was where the executive session issue that I've been discussing with some of these other lawyers has come up. And this is a little bit of outline where Barry introduced the omnibus Senate Bill 202. The law says that evaluation of officers are the same as for employees. So that is the end of the presentation. I hope I've covered the areas that y'all had mentioned to me coming up, and I don't want to take any more of your time unless you have any questions.
Thanks, Mr. Clon.
Thank you. All right. I'll have some copies of these slides if anybody wants them. I am perfectly willing to stay if y'all want to. If you will excuse me, I will leave. Are there things on here that,
Might want to.
You might stay around for the ex parte conversation. I'd appreciate that.
I'm sorry?
But the next item up, I think, is ex parte conversation. That sounds kind of legal.
I'm glad to stay.
You can stay right here. You can stay right here.
Oh, okay.
Okay, Eric, Councilman Jones, is you.
Is Chris on go to meetings?
She's right here.
Actually,
This is Jimmy.
Yeah, I'm here. I can see y'all. I don't know if you can see me.
We can see you.
We can, yeah.
Can you hear us?
Okay. I'm here. I've been here. Hey.
Hi.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I wanted to talk a little bit about this ex parte contact, and I wouldn't have brought it up if I was totally thrilled with the concept, but I have an open mind on it. I'm still kind of the new guy. A lot of you here have been here many, many years. I know I'm not even sure of the total history of it, but I believe, first of all, just to start off with, if you put in the little search bar on the city website, ex parte contact, you get this thing I printed up where it's under the category of a few words on ex parte contact. I didn't really see that it was actually put into a code anywhere or an ordinance. I mean, is it just a policy that we have? So that's one question I had. Another, I understand this was added by a past council member. Those of you that were around, there's at least 3 of you I know were pretty involved at that time. And I was wondering how we survived prior to the change to make ex parte contact wrong. Basically, as you all know, it applies according to the part that was in the zoning category. I'm not even sure if it's law, but it doesn't apply when you're talking with staff, so you can talk with staff all you want. And it doesn't apply to text or map amendments, because that's more legislative than it is judicial, and you can still talk to citizens or each other. But when it comes to design review applications, COAs for the HPC, or conditional uses, such as we most recently had the property on East Avenue. And I think I disclosed that I spoke with Jimmy just to, I wanted to talk to the neighbor across the street to at least let him know that meeting was happening, and the whole time I felt a little bit uncomfortable about it. My personal feeling is that I take it almost, I wouldn't say I take it personally, but it's kind of like this rule is telling me that I really can't be trusted to be unduly influenced by talking to somebody, and that bothers me. I mean, I think as an elected representative, I think I have an obligation to listen to other people's opinions, to learn myself, to hear what people think, whether they're citizens in my district or in another district. It doesn't really matter to me. I think we take votes that affect the whole city. So I kind of object to being limited. I'm sorry, I just can't talk about that, because I think that's what my job is kind of supposed to be. But, so those of you that have been here for a number of years, Rick and Mr. Mayor and of course David, how did we get along prior to this rule being changed? And what are some of your thoughts about whether is there value in the ex parte ban?
I think that Michael, we would say it comes from Michael, because I think it was changed because we didn't want to probably make a pre-decision, you know, by talking to the individuals, you know. And we as a council person, our mayor, city manager, you feel obligated to talk to your constituents, you know, about that. But to my understanding, well, you could talk, but you just couldn't maybe ask them to just listen to them, to their concerns, you know. And you probably do feel sort of handcuffed because you can't just have a great conversation with them about what's going on, you know, and let them know how you feel about it.
The other end of it is not just the constituents that would be affected by something like this, but it's the applicants and the people who have a vested interest in the property that this kind of gives you, not kind of, it does give you policy to avoid being lobbied outside of a council meeting or outside of an official meeting. Some of the public might be, that might bother them that you had conversations with developers outside of a public meeting, that you were privy to hearing, or they were privy to making comments that were not, and that's part of not just the not just the people learning about it, it's the people who want to do it, who often want to lobby all the people making the decision, because they often call and say, well, I want a list of names and email addresses for people who are going to decide this COA or this conditional use or whatever. It's a quasi-judicial, I think I'm using the right terminology. It's you're sitting in judgment of a particular case and not a case that affects everything citywide.
There's a world difference in a legislative proceeding and a quasi-judicial proceeding, because you can lobby the legislature, we call it development anytime. You say, I want to do this, I want to do that, try to persuade. You can't call Judge Pryor about a pending case and talk to him. First of all, I wouldn't talk to him. Even when we call the judge's office about administrative matters, we talk to either the law clerk or the judge's courtroom deputy. So when you take on a matter that is quasi-judicial, it's just inappropriate to talk to somebody about something you're going to have to rule on. Whether it's theirs or whether it's one of the opponents.
There's variances, I get confused. Variances are quasi-judicial as well.
Yeah.
That's right, because it pertains to a particular piece of property and a judgment call. And I don't think, there wasn't a rule before it was brought up by and then approved by the council and put in the zoning law. I don't know exactly where it falls. Like you said,
It's 11:45, but I can't get on
the
I
network.
can't get on the website, city website.
The
It's not
Wi-Fi
connected.
is not working.
Wi-Fi is not working right now.
Okay, it's not finding mine.
But I think for 40 years in the past, or 50, or however how long it's been before this was clarified, think council members, the mayor, whoever, might have conversations, and some, I don't know, I don't think it ever got anybody in trouble. I don't think it really got, there was a council member that thought that it should be prohibited or at least disclosed if you had a conversation with someone about.
I was going to say, and I had all the same concerns, even after hearing what they talked about you can't be the judge and be approached, but the same thing if you're in the grocery store, if you're at church, or wherever you are, and your constituents, your neighbors want to talk to you. So there was a caveat put in there, Eric, that says unless, I mean, it did pass that there's no ex parte communication unless you permit them to do so, which
But yeah,
which is kind of opening it wide open, and then you disclose such.
But it gives you cover. It says, I have to, and I don't feel comfortable having that conversation outside of a public meeting where everybody would benefit from what
Right.
you're telling me.
Yeah,
one of the things you might say is, if I talk to you about this, I'm probably going to have to recuse myself.
Well, this is what happened to me recently when I was approached. I didn't feel comfortable talking to outside of a public meeting because, I didn't want to be lobbied a certain way without my fellow council people having the privilege to hear everything that was being said to me all at once. So I don't know if that's ex parte, but I usually try to encourage people to at least send an email to all of us or come to a meeting and so we all hear at the same time, so that if we're acting like a jury, we're getting information all at once and instead of piecemeal.
Right, and the basic thing is that legislatively, you represent these people. Judicially, you do not represent anybody. You are open-minded, fair-minded, open to both sides of the issue.
Well, I think that's, you said earlier, it's things that are not really appropriate. To me, it's not really appropriate to have a constituent of mine who lives in my district, who I've been elected to represent. To me, it bothers me to say, I'm sorry, you have an opinion, but I cannot talk to you about it. You cannot voice your opinion to your elected representative.
Until you come to the vote.
Well, there is that, but still, it bothers me. And then, like, I had forgotten the clause you mentioned, Rick. Now I recall reading that on a number of other occasions about unless it's okay with you. And I thought, well, that just guts the whole.
I couldn't believe it, but that was my amendment to Michael's ex parte law.
Yeah, you can't have an ex parte conversation unless you say it's okay. What is it? That's basically what it says, isn't it?
Right, which defeats the purpose of ex parte conversation.
Pretty much.
Over there in Mississippi, they call that earwigging. I managed to earwig the judge there.
Earwig.
Caught him out at dinner.
Well,
I get text messages or emails from people about certain issues, and as long as, I don't have your concerns in writing, and as long as it goes in the public record, that should be good, right?
Yeah, if they want to write something in support or in opposition, those writings are, become part of the record.
I always encourage that. That way their voice is heard and it's in the record, and it's not, I don't mind taking comments at the grocery store, but really it's good that you can share them
Right.
if it's in writing.
Yeah, you can say something, you got a mic.
So, us putting it in our ordinance really didn't suddenly make this happen. This is an established legal principle.
Yes.
I've been going to HPC training for 30 years, and for 30 years they say no ex parte communication.
Right.
So we might put it in our ordinance in order to make it easily for somebody to find it, but it's an established legal principle.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's, any quasi idea, that goes all the way back to the Administrative Procedures Act. If somebody's having a workers' comp hearing, you don't call a workers' comp judge and talk to them, because they're an administrative law judge.
and they gotta make a decision, and they gotta make the decision based on the evidence presented at a scheduled hearing with every interested person either there or able to be there.
So you're saying that the change, when this was put into the zoning act, it was new to our zoning ordinance, however, it wasn't new to established practice?
No, it's, kid's exactly right.
Was there then, on not any specific case, but in the past where the opposition to a certain zoning action found out that a member of the council was lobbied very heavily and they cast one of the deciding votes, then that could be
It could be a
grounds for challenge.
And they might make a motion at the hearing to disqualify that person.
And that's happened as well. We've had that happen as well.
I still can't get past the concept that this practice is telling me that I don't have the judgment or the moral integrity to fend off these approaches. That's kind of what it's saying.
That's not what it's saying.
I hope
That is
not.
what it's saying. It is the appearance of impropriety, not impropriety. That's the word. You can be angelic, but if it looks to the public like you've been talking under the table.
Well, that's why in the old days I used to, not that I was violating the ex parte contact rule, but when I would meet questionable constituents, I'd do it at the perk, where at least I'd have the defense of, well, it was in the freaking public. I mean, if we were really doing something untoward, we'd do it in the
But you didn't get
back
elected.
alley or
Back
something.
alley.
Yeah.
You didn't get elected to represent that person with respect to quasi-judicial. You got elected to be a city council member from that district, and for legislative purposes, for their morals and everything else, you're elected. But when you put on the judge hat, that's part of being elected. And they elected you to be an impartial judge as much as they did to be a legislator.
And a couple of the quasi-judicial issues that would come before, namely dangerous animals, vicious dogs. Y'all don't do that anymore. You got so little of it, either you didn't want to do it or weren't prepared to do it. Now, I think it goes before the judge now. I'm pretty sure. And also, I don't think that appeals on junk automobiles used to come to the council. And that you don't do that anymore. That goes to city court for the judge to decide and work through administratively. So things have moved around with respect to that as well.
Okay. And I was going to say that the basis isn't that there's no trust that a council member can't remain unbiased. But what the basis is that the person who is seeking the action isn't hearing the argument and therefore doesn't have a chance to rebut that argument. And even if you bring it up later, they don't hear word for word necessarily what they said to you. So it's really a point of fairness that the person whose case is being judged should be able to hear all arguments against and be able to rebut it.
Right, before making a decision.
Yeah, Ken has called me before. I recall an email. It wasn't directed to me by name, but I think it was directed to me. But because actually it was an HPC thing, as a member of the council, I'm not even on the HPC. I don't vote. They won't even let me talk because I'm on the potential of the appellate board, and therefore, so we're getting more and more remote. I feel muted. But anyway, I appreciate all your comments and then
Well, do you feel better?
how do I feel about it?
You feel better.
Do I feel better? I feel slightly vented.
You can do what Mr. Carter said earlier. You can say, I don't, I oppose it, but I'm going to support it now that it's.
There you go. Well, I don't hear this upswelling of support of my position from anybody. So, But it's not an issue I want to really hang my hat on anyway. It's been kind of bothering me for a while, so thanks very much for the time of letting me talk about it.
Thank you. How about T-Splosh revenues? I think we're good. If you need to leave in the car, I think we're good on the rest.
And I'm certainly not in a hurry to go.
Okay.
I committed this day out for
Yeah.
this, I just,
Feel free to stay if you want to.
You could be useful elsewhere, what you say.
I don't have,
Go ahead.
as Ben Weinberg, a member of one of the biggest law firms in Atlanta, said, I can go work on my other case.
Right. Well, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you all, I always enjoy.
Always
And thanks for staying around for the ex parte conversation.
Oh,
I knew that was right up your alley. It's in Latin. If it's in Latin, that's you, right? Is that Latin? Yeah.
Ex from, yes, ex parte, yes.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, you asked about T-Splosh. I had met with David a while back, and it was, basically, I'm pushing David to, with your help.
I'm feeling the push.
David's felt the push, you know.
I can give a bit of a report. Our contract with a concrete, local concrete person, Mr. Harris, is working out really well. The thing that we are not doing is getting him work laid out on a regular basis. He's poured some sidewalk for us over in Hidden Hills, not Hidden Hills, but Markham's Hill. He's poured some curbing on North 2nd Street where we had a drainage problem. He did a good job on that. But every job he does requires some prep work on our part. The next job he's going to do, and these are all sidewalk and or curb and gutter related, some more drainage, but where the old high school entrances were, we are going to take those old entrances out and straighten the curb and just make it a consistent curb line all the way down. I think there are 3 entrances that have to be redone and put in rollback curbs and sidewalks to clean that up. And also there's a header curb where there needs to be a ADA ramp. So we're working through that. Next thing after that will be probably College Drive. There are some toe kicks and some places on College Drive need to be busted out. East Avenue, they have a few of those. There are a lot of regular walkers there. And then we're going to get back into Valley Farms to do some more repair. I really want to get down here on East Jefferson to put in a section of fresh sidewalk, new sidewalk. But we got to get caught up on some of these commitments on repairs, and then we can try to tackle a new sidewalk job that's going to require a good bit of work. Aaron's running a little bit shy on help. He's had some people move around. We had an employee that moved up into the water department, which is always good. Zach Porter is becoming he's training to be a water plant operator, which is in a way, street department and what they do is very important. They have their role, but he has more chance for advancement and more pay, a little bit better job. So that's just to say we've got some labor. It's a tough market right now to find good people.
Yeah, I think it was 3 ads in this week's paper for
That's right.
city employees and along
We
the
have a
line.
hire for the payroll / accounts payable. We've got somebody coming in, I think the first part of May, to fill that position. That's where Betsy was. I think we have a street laborer perhaps, and we're trying to find somebody with some skills, carpentry and or concrete, to help EJ when Zach moved up. I can't remember the other. Oh, yeah, gas we're looking for, because we've kind of pulled the trigger on that gas line expansion. We've ordered the pipe for that, so we've essentially hit the beaches in the New World and burned the ships. We got pipe coming, and we're going to start putting some in the ground.
On sidewalks, Mr. Mayor, on sidewalks, David, how are we coming on I guess we're probably waiting on the tree boxes in front of Charles
Yes,
Mann.
that's a priority for Aaron and his guys as well. That we've got to get that done because we got to get trees put in there, which will be fine. We'll do fine with that. But we've got the boxes. It's just again
labor
one of those things that he's and his landscape guys will probably help do that. I just need to remind him and say, let's make that a priority.
So do you find it sort of hard, Mr. Manager, to hire new employees now? Are they about applying?
We have some applications, but I give my superintendents credit. They check out new employees. They, not just because somebody wants to take a job, they check with a former employer. If they say, if you want to know why I left, it's a long story, or I'll explain it to you, and it kind of throws up red flags. You don't want somebody else's problems. I'm hoping that we can get some, younger individuals who want to learn a trade or start making, pretty decent money out of the gate. With good benefits to help them out whether they're coming out of high school or school is, or if we'll hire on the other end, we'll hire good people who are in the middle of their career. We've had good success either way. We had one employee that went to and enlisted in the military, and that didn't. I think there might have been a medical reason for that person, and they came back and wanted to come back to work, but they were hired on in the gas department as a skilled technician in gas meter repair and installs and whatnot. So we got that person back. That was Clarissa Hammond. She was with Aaron's crew before, and she's back working with us. So she's a good rehire, so to speak.
Right now, I know our city policy, like you're going to retire, like old city clerk retired, not to allow them to come back and work part-time.
Yes.
Because
it's a retirement, right? It's a retirement benefit. Yes. 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 I like that. I like that rule. We have had people retire after 30 years. I'm not going to get into specifics, but once that person moved up, they were desirous to come and work on a contract basis. But in that particular job, it gave no chance, if you hired them back, it gave no chance for anybody within that department to move up and take on more responsibility or learn more skills. And I think it's a good rule, and I know it's necessary, and I know there are reasons for it. I've actually, talked about maybe hiring a part-time truck driver, that is, because they have a CD and they're maintaining their CDL, but, we just can't do it. They're receiving a city pension, and when we prohibit that. So, and I think it's a good rule.
I have no problem with it.
No.
One question: how can we, if we can or not, people putting trash on the side of the street? Can that be a designated time that they can do that, besides putting it out on Friday, the trash truck will come until Wednesday?
You mean
it's a problem in our neighborhood.
The junk truck? I think we can, I'm not sure what the ordinance says or what the policy is, but we can publicize that, or we could make it in ordinance form to not put it out. I would say probably Monday at the latest, or Monday afternoon. You may sit out for the most one day,
Right.
But we'll look at that and see.
That would be absolutely great.
See, to keep people from pushing it out there too quickly.
So if I could bring it back to the subject at hand.
I think Chris was going to say something.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Chris.
is there any way we could change that day? Why, is there a reason it's Wednesday? Cause so many people work like, landlords cleaning out houses, evictions, or people, families, getting houses ready to sell, and they come on the weekends and do the work, and, they probably leave it out on Monday. I know that seems to be a trend. So are we married to the Wednesday junk day, or is it?
No, it's our day. It's just been that way for a long time.
Yeah. That might help mitigate some of that, because so many people do so much work on weekends,
Well,
and they put
for,
stuff out.
for evictions and for cleanouts, what we try to help people remember is that we have a roll-off dumpster that we can place at a property, and the only cost is the weight of the cost of disposal. We
Yeah.
don't charge for rent, we don't charge for placing or removing or dumping. All we do is charge someone for the cost of dumping that material. The evictions are a problem because by law, their stuff has to be set out at the curb. And I don't know how long it has to sit there, but it's a horrible law or horrible rule.
Yeah.
Because by the time the person has been evicted, they don't have, very seldom do you have situations where you see a family sitting out there in their recliner by the street because they don't have anywhere else to go. Most evictions, people have moved out and just left their stuff that they didn't want in the
That's right.
apartment or in their house. So I wish there was a way that if we had advance notice, we could set a dumpster near the street, and then they could put it in that and then let it sit there for a day, and then we could haul it off. But we don't often get the benefit of that knowledge. The reason Wednesday is what it is because the crew that does that's the day they don't have a garbage route. That's the only day they work all day. The guys who are on the garbage truck for Monday and Tuesday's route are on the junk truck on Wednesday, and they also pick up downtown garbage Wednesday morning. And then typically they get around. They might have a little bit left over if it's a heavy junk day. But it's something we would have to put some serious thought into if we wanted to move off of that. It's pretty entrenched.
Yeah, I hear you. And that service is wonderful. I've used it.
It is. It
But
is.
a lot of people don't know about it. Maybe we just tell most of there's a certain group of people that own most of the rental
Rental property,
properties.
yes.
Okay, Eric, back to you.
Okay, I'm not, in talking with David, the concern I have, we're in a unique situation. My interest is in sidewalks, and I think you probably all know that, and I've kind of beaten that to a dead horse. A couple of years ago, we did add $50,000 a year to the budget for sidewalks. I'm not sure the council knows, but at least forgive me for not knowing this current budget, but in the next budget, that $50,000 has been eliminated because we have the T-Splosh money, and I'm not opposed to that elimination. We're getting a whole lot more T-Splosh money if we spend it. Now, that's kind of we're in a weird situation here, it seems like, in talking with David, where money is not the issue. There are so many things we all want to do to improve the city, and money is always the issue. We never have enough money to do the various things we all want to do for our constituents. This case, that's not the problem. We're not getting sidewalks repaired and replaced for reasons other than a lack of money. And just to kind of reiterate again, we brought this up at a meeting a few months ago, but the February T-Splosh distribution, this 2 months ago, for the city of Madison was almost $87,000 for that month. If you recall the T-Splosh, we get a small share of what the county gets, and I think it was capped at either a date certain, which I think was a 5-year point, or the $8 million, I believe, at the county level was generated, and then that would end that particular T-Splosh. Well, we're way ahead of schedule on the revenues coming out of that, so it's not going to last any 5 years. So we're already into year 2, I guess, and so we're approaching halfway, and we need to find a way to spend the money for what we want. So, this past December, 3 months ago, $96,000 we got. Now, so far we've done, I don't disagree that it's important, but we spent a bunch of money on equipment, bulldozers and skip loaders and stuff. I don't even know what they are. That's fine. I've told David, I think that I trust his judgment and Aaron's judgment of what we need. That's probably money well spent, but at the same time, we need to spend money on things that our taxpayers, our citizens can see and appreciate. And to me, the sidewalks is such an easy one. Now, at the rate we're generating this money, and bear in mind, we don't have the $50,000, but we're generating so much money for that, we need to figure out a way to get some of that work done, whether it's, are we not writing the RFP properly to find a bidder? I mean, can't we say, here's a $250,000 project, and highlight the sections of the blocks that we need sidewalk repairs? Or, I realize doing the sidewalk on Vine Street, for example, that's major surgery, that's engineering, and it's pipe work, and that would probably cost the whole $250,000 right there. But anyway, I just wanted the council to be aware that money is not the issue, but we're not getting those things done for a lot of other reasons. So, and I did, you know, I like the idea initially of having this one company do the work. They're local. They did the work up at Lambert Park, which I thought was really good. There's got to be a way to put something together to identify this section, and that section. I can think of East Avenue, Main Street, 2nd Street, Valley Farm has, you know, big 4-inch trip points, you know, it's like, my goodness. I just wanted the council to be aware of that. We need to find a way to spend this money, or we're gonna end up with a big bunch of money at the end of the T-Splosh, and not a whole lot to justify it to the taxpayers that they can see. They're not gonna see the new skip loader we got. You know, we will, but they don't care about that. So that's my pitch.
Just to clarify, those numbers, T-Splosh includes many things other than sidewalks.
It does.
Sidewalks are a subset
Yeah.
of still, and we've laid out numbers for, there's only so much equipment or only so much that can be bought out of things that may not be as apparent to the public, but, you know, street resurfacing is very, very apparent to the public.
Yeah, and David's exactly right. Here's a list of what we told the
Spent.
taxpayers, and it was $1 million for resurfacing and paving. It was almost $1 million for road construction and bridges. It was $150,000 for parking lots, $500,000 for stormwater. That's a continuing
Right.
problem. It relates to
We spent some money.
surfacing of roads. Sidewalks was $500,000. Trails were $500,000. The airport was $100,000, and then the machinery was $242,000. So David's exactly right. I mean, that's just one of the many projects. But other than machinery, and I know we did the 2nd Street stuff we did, and I think, did the bridge out across from Mayor Perriman's house, was that under T-Splosh? Not the bridge, the...
It could, no,
Was that
the culvert work, stormwater, it could have been splossed, and it could have been,
Okay,
because
okay.
Karen is always balancing
Yeah.
the splossed funds. We have splossed funds for transportation, for roads and bridges and streets as well. So we're kind of taking it down, kind of the oldest money in, or the first in, first out, to keep the money flowing through. We are trying, like I said before, we're going to move to these repair projects where essentially what we do is we put the contractor on notice, and then we move through with a machine and we pull out 100 feet of sidewalk or whatever, and then he comes in and repours it. And then we move on to the next.
So the city's responsibility is pulling out the old...
Yes.
And they will do the forms?
Yeah, we do the forms and the pouring and the finishing. We pay for all of whatever material and, of course, the concrete, and he charges us based on a agreed upon. So we're gonna make some more. The high school is next, and then we're gonna move back into these neighborhoods and on these streets, and I think we'll start to get caught up a little bit more. Again, it's a labor crunch. It's a bit of, you know, Aaron just trying to pick his spots to get these things done, and with what he has in 8 hours. But we're making some progress. I'm a bit more encouraged than I have been in the past.
And one of the things I asked David when we met a week or two ago was, is Aaron's department properly staffed? Because we've put so much more responsibility on them. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, we had one maintenance man in the cemetery. Now I believe we have 3. We have a fourth park that's now open that needs to be mowed and maintained and everything else. And we're talking about new trails. Once these trails are actually put into place, someone's going to have to maintain them. And, I mean, are we?
We're staffing up. He's not now. He's short now, but we did hire more, and we had more equipment for at least 2 more where there were 4. But I don't even think he has his 4-person team fully staffed, and we're trying to add more. So we're always struggling to find more people to do these jobs. It seems like for every 3 we hire, one of them may work out. So you may get there eventually, but you just got to work your way through. We made some good hires, but Aaron and I talk all the time about help, and we're advertising all the time.
So when you look at the total project list, the sidewalks is maybe just rough eyeballing, and maybe 10% of the whole list. So
Yeah.
if you prorate that over the monthly basis, so that's $9,000 for sidewalks alone in February. That's $8,000 in January.
Yeah.
And we're well into our second year now. I mean, I've never seen a situation where we're prevented from doing what we want for reasons other than a lack of money.
As you remember, that when we bid out the Jefferson Street, Vine Street project, I think it may have come in between $300,000 and $400,000 or $250,000. But that's half of the money that was for T-Splosh for sidewalks. And I just didn't see that as a project. We did everything out on the Carter, 1,800 feet of sidewalk out there. Didn't have any curb and gutter. It was pretty much just, going through, scraping out, forming and pouring, doing ramps. We did all of that for, I think it was it was probably $120,000,
Wow.
half as much.
Good.
So the market is really, really, really.
And that was funded by the developers themselves.
No. This was all the fill-in. This was
Oh,
all on the
between the-
right side, that
oh.
stuff that had developed before, and these were just pieces of sidewalk that hadn't been done before.
Well, were we able to do that because it was packaged as one
It was
RFP?
one project, yes, but
Well, maybe
it was
that's-
one area. And we may take another shot at that,
Mhm.
but very few of these are that clean and easy. Again, like you said, a lot of new sidewalks go in as part of new projects, so new subdivisions, commercial, but it's all this fill-in stuff and things like Jefferson, Vine Street, those are fill-in as well, because there are sidewalks on sections of those, but they're ditch sections and working around things and driveways are just not. We're gonna have to bear down even more and challenge our guy to get in there and get that done after we set it up for him. So we'll do better.
All right.
Thank you, sir. Dennis?
Yeah, I don't want to have anyone complaining that usually it's not about spending money. That's usually not the problem, but we want to do it wisely. Yep.
Golf carts. I just want to know, I know we have a few golf carts owners here in our city, but we want, and it's probably citywide, I guess, Mr. Manager.
It is up to 35 mile an hour, so they can't go all the way out past about Ingalls.
Okay.
That's about the limit on they're legal on city streets and state routes up to 35 miles an hour. But I noticed more and more of them. There are requirements that of course, the drivers must be licensed drivers. You can't, 10-year-old kid can't get out on a city street on a golf cart, no matter how nice or well-equipped a golf cart is. And it has to have certain things. It's got to be set up certain ways, whether it's signals or mirrors or whatever that, lights or whatever that is. I don't know by heart. Off the top of my head, I don't know what all those requirements are, but they have to be
I think that's what
set
they
up
are.
a certain way.
Blinkers, mirrors.
Right. Minimum safety.
Or-
They may have to have seat belts in them, but I'm not sure.
How can we, I know right here in our city, we have staff that has to probably go all over town and beyond. Is there any way that we can get a used vehicle for staff to use for their for city transportation, or they use their own transportation, or,
For what purpose, Mr.
I mean,
Mayor?
get a golf cart.
Well, we have what we call a side-by-side that and we do have a golf cart that's not used as much anymore. We bought a golf cart for the meter readers to use, and they would, run up and down the sidewalks, and they would run and use them in certain areas, or they would take it to Rutledge when they read gas meters. But as you know, we don't read meters that way anymore. We read them via a radio network. So we have that. They may use it from time to time, but a few years ago, we bought a Kubota side-by-side that's more of an agricultural or a commercial vehicle, and we have that to use. Oftentimes what we found is that a smaller vehicle like that set up to move people around is often not as expensive, but you spend a lot of money on something that you could just buy a pickup truck for a little bit more money and get a lot more out of it. Some of these vehicles, you can't send an employee to pick up parts in Social Circle or in Athens, but you can a good, working vehicle, a highway vehicle like a pickup truck. So we go based on need, and we do have 2 vehicles like that, and they're used quite extensively.
I have a constituent who's very interested in this topic. So several months ago, I did a little research in what our city code is, and I had a couple of back and forths with Chief Ashburn about that. And the ordinance in the city of Madison says golf carts are not allowed on city streets or public parks or sidewalks in the city of Madison. However, low-speed vehicles are. Now, to the average person like me, or maybe you, Mr. Mayor, it looks like a golf cart. We call them golf carts. In our conversation today, referred to them as golf carts. But we probably should train ourselves to start referring to them as low-speed vehicles, because golf carts are technically not legal.
Yeah, well, I guess so.
And they're a little bit different because they have to go, I think they have to be able to drive at least, as I recall the ordinance, at least 25 miles an hour. They have to have some of the safety features you all talked about, the turn indicators and brake lights, and they cannot go on city streets that have a speed limit over 35.
Right.
So in other words, they are allowed on Main Street.
Yes.
Until you get to the part that jumps up in speed to anything over 35. But, I don't think we're in danger of becoming Peachtree City. I think my constituent sort of fears that we're heading in the Peachtree City direction. I mean, I go to these summer concerts in Rutledge before COVID, and there's a bunch of people that show up on low-speed vehicles that we all would refer to as golf carts. And it's kind of a neat way to, in a small town like that, to go to an event like that. I'm not sure it works so well on Main Street, but there is a difference between the two, and low-speed vehicles are allowed by our code.
Well, I'm glad you clarified, because there were a letter to the editor, what, 3 or 4
Yeah,
months ago.
yeah, indeed.
About golf carts, so maybe it was in low-speed vehicle that would clarify.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that letter, I think, and I spoke with the letter writer, because I said, I must take umbrage at that, because you don't have your facts exactly right. I mean, we are not allowing golf carts contrary to the law. They're not allowed on city streets or sidewalks.
They may not be allowed. There may be some out there using some that don't meet the standard. There's just not a great way, unless it's a complaint-based thing, or unless we're looking for them to say, well, this, and maybe that's what we need to do is, we didn't do a registration of those vehicles. They don't have to be tagged and titled, even though Mr. Newton's was, because his was a very nice low-speed vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
His was probably the nicest in town. Other folks may meet it, but if we talked about or even thought about a registration process to just for the police, that when you want to put them on a city street, then the police have said, okay, this meets our standards. It has got lights, it's got signals, it's got mirrors, it's got, if the brakes are okay, it's got seat belts, then that, and then you give them a sticker to put in the front windshield. And if there's one that doesn't meet that, then you say, well, you can't put it on the city street. I'm not sure what's the right way to do it. We don't get enough complaints. Only complaints that I hear are in neighborhoods or subdivisions where there are kids who are on, whether it's golf carts or low-speed vehicles, and they're out on city streets joyriding. And the adults don't see that as safe, and they will complain about that, or the police have to check that out.
I think the chief told me that he actually pulled over a low-speed vehicle once himself because there was a child just sitting on one of the people's laps.
Yes.
And neither one of the mother or the child was strapped in. And that was on Main Street, so he pulled.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I know, and that's kind of the concern. People think they can get in these things and just.
But that wouldn't take much of an accident for those persons to be in a lot of trouble.
That's exactly right. And then it also kind of gets into the insurance. Are they insured the same as an automobile would be if you have a collision with them? Or
What do they have seatbelts? Do they have seatbelts? Do you know if they have seatbelts?
I thought they were
They have
required
to have
They
seatbelts.
should be required to buy
Yeah.
seatbelts.
Seatbelts, turn indicators. I believe it was 2 mirrors, one
But I would
on each side or something like that.
I would doubt that it would be legal to strap a child safety seat, even if it was the nicest, most compliant one that you'd ever have, to strap one in a low-speed vehicle. I may be wrong about that, but that is something that we'll
But to ride around with a child in your lap, to me, is dangerous.
Oh, that's definitely dangerous, yeah.
almost as bad as riding one around on a mower while you're mowing your yard.
Exactly.
That's cringeworthy in my book.
But it's on private property.
Well, it is, but
You're allowed to be stupid on your
They
own
should be,
property.
they should go to a seminar where
They should.
hundreds of accidents have shown where bad things happen.
Okay.
When that,
Social media, Chris?
May I?
Social media.
you're up.
Oh, social media, yeah, so I think, you guys know that, I'm always kind of ahead of the curve with some things that, I'm constantly on my phone, as you know, so, I was hoping that, Ken or Kieran, maybe we could send them to some classes or invest in, and it's a low cost, there's no cost actually except for time, on really building our social media, especially in Instagram. Ken does a great job on the city stuff with Instagram and Facebook, but building our Main Street, I think Karen now runs the Main Street social media account, and really building that platform with TikTok and some other avenues that we're not as familiar with because we're older now, but the younger kids are. There's just so much, and it just really attracts the tourism, the daytime tourism, and that's what we want, is somebody that comes in and then leaves, spends money and then leaves. But I know that Karen's probably, and Ken are probably, or whoever we need to talk to about this are probably receptive to this. It's just, there's a lot of, it's just a learning curve. And I wouldn't begin to know how to teach them. We do TikTok in our business, but it's just a super creative platform. I don't know if you guys are following Karen on Instagram. She really, it's so good, and she takes constructive criticism so well, or just not even criticism, just suggestions. But she's doing a Foodie Friday segment on her Instagram and on Facebook, which I just think is awesome, because people when they see a visual of food, whether they live here or not, they'll travel for food, they'll travel for shopping, they'll travel because they want that experience. So anyway, I'd love to see us build on that, whether it's, what is the app, Waze? There's so much that we can drive people to town and that doesn't cost anything. And, you know, of course, if we get the Tesla, and Madison is on the map for the Tesla supercharger, that will bring a lot of people in town too, but we want them to stay. We don't want them just to get on the interstate or charge at the interstate and then get back on the interstate. If they can come in town, that would be awesome. But I just wanted to put it on your radar and maybe, you know, maybe give Karen permission or Ken to really explore, you know, getting out of our comfort zone and Instagram and Facebook and really exploring some ways and some other things. Ken's on Nextdoor, which I think is brilliant. And of course, we're doing all the streaming now. So, you know, the more ways we can be ahead of the curve, I think it's just important.
So Chris, Councilmember Hodges, brother, would it be a great idea?
I can't hear you, Mayor.
Gotta go in the mic.
I can't hear you very well. Yeah.
Would it work, you think, if we get Ken and Karen together, let them come up with some suggestions of what our social media needs to do, what they can do, and if there's a budget that they need
I think they're doing a great job. I think it's just, I think they're doing a great job. It's just some of this stuff we get comfortable with, and and there's just so many new platforms now. You know, when Nellie was at the TVB, she did a Snapchat filter for Madison, and the kids love that. My daughter's like, I can't believe we have a Madison Snapchat filter. I mean, there's just so many things. It's like low-hanging fruit that it's just connecting that fruit to us so that we can take advantage of it and be ahead of everywhere around us. I think they're doing a great. There's no criticism here. I just think there's some opportunities that maybe they need some help with TikTok, because that's a pretty creative platform. And Karen and I talked about it, and she's like, I need my son to help me. But maybe the guys at the high school can, the social media or the media people at the high school. But I encourage you to look at TikTok, because they really, I mean, the kids are going places that, and when you go into your town, it knows that you're there, and you can, you know, I've got to go shop here. And a lot of our retailers are doing their own social media. Maybe do a social media class for the retailers with Main Street. I don't know. We can just leave that charge because it's all going to bring people here, and it's you know, I know we're trying to diversify our attractions so that we're just not on the tour of homes, but other things too, like the arts and food and shopping and culture and a myriad of reasons to come and spend the day and then leave. So.
Okay. Well, Ken here. Ken, you want to iterate some ideas that you may have, or what you've come up with, or?
I kind of came in late on that, so I think I missed some of it. But I think Karen has really taken ownership of a lot of the Main Street stuff. She created a Main Street Instagram page separate from the cities, and I think she's building it. So, but she's always up for some advice and guidance.
And I found that too, and I think if we can find some TikTok training or get somebody, an intern, or to look at, you know, so in my business I have an outside person that kind of looks at how Madison Realty is perceived, or my company is perceived elsewhere, and there's just lots of things that I'm missing, and I think the technology changes, and it's all free, and you know. Ken, we have a YouTube channel, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, I mean, Ken, his Nextdoor, I love that platform, and I think he's doing a great job with that. And but Karen, I think, is receptive to exploring I don't necessarily think it's relevant to the city of Madison, but the Main Street and just building that social media platform will really, I think, make the downtown businesses happy, because most of them probably don't know how to do TikTok. And I've talked to the CBB members about this and the downtown, the Main Street Promotions Group, and everybody's receptive to this. It's just nobody, it's a real creative platform, and it needs somebody, probably somebody young to help.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
That's why I would just give her permission to research it, and if we have to send her some classes, that's fine, or get somebody from the high school to help. Because I think she's willing to do it. It's just a big learning curve.
Thank you so much. Any more general discussion?
Maybe we can get people from the middle school to give me a lesson on any of this stuff. I agree with Chris. I think that communication forum is the way of the future. I know nothing about it, but it seems to me that that's where we're going. And any support we can give Karen, I agree completely.
This is awesome. One more thing. When we go to city council, go to our city council conventions, a lot of cities have their own city flag. Can Madison have its own city flag? I think, I don't know how we can do it or what we can do, but I think it'd be nice to have our city flag and let the area be in the flag parade when we have our, I think it'd be great, for Madison to be in the flag parade.
We've seen a lot of flags in that flag parade at the annual convention there at GMA, and Madison is not one of them. Maybe that's something we could, speaking of the high school, that sounds like a perfect project for the high school art class to design it.
It'll be a great project. It'll be a great project for a graduated high school student. The one that is picked, and if they're going to college, give them a $500 scholarship from the city of Madison.
If I could ask Ken a question, is this something that would be appropriate for the Arts Commission? Or would that take too long?
I suppose they wouldn't mind commenting on it, but I think flags are a bit more than just artistry. But I'm going to send everybody a podcast on creating flags.
Wow.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And by the way, I already have a design for the city flags. I just want to
Oh, really? How about that?
Oh, my goodness.
I think it'd be great for our city, really.
Are you hopeful, Mr. Mayor, to have this by the August GMA annual convention?
The GMA is in August.
Yeah.
I don't know, Ken, how quick you can have a flag.
It seems pretty fast.
And we have to, I'm pretty sure we have to let the GMA know that the city, because they have to call your name, I think, or something.
Yeah, I think that they send out a request to, if you want to be in with the packet, just to let them know that you want to be in it, so they can put you in the lineup and who's going to present. But Ken educated me, and you can tell that some cities put a lot more thought, because I said, well, let's take our seal and stick it on a flag, and there's a lot more to it than that. I mean, I think you can do something outside of your seal. There should be a lot of thought that goes into something, and an opportunity to do something different than your seal.
Right,
that talks about your city.
It'd be good for Madison then. Where would this flag be located? Outside our city hall there, on the flagpoles? Could we have it here?
I would think it could be anywhere where you have your state and your U.S. flag. We certainly could make room for it on our flagpole, wherever that, we've got the U.S., state, and Tree City flag, but we could certainly rearrange that, at least for the third one.
And I move that Ashley carry the flag in the procession. Is there a second? But bear in mind, that even if we did get the flag ready, there's a good chance with COVID regulations at this convention that they may not even
They
have
probably won't
the,
have it this year, I just
the
don't see
procession.
them
It could
doing
be-
that.
May not have a lot of their big assemblies.
yeah.
Next year, surely, you know,
Yeah.
if Ken can come up with a draft that they already have, and the council approve that draft, look at that draft, I think it's a good start.
So how long is this podcast?
Probably half an hour, 45 minutes.
Well, I can deal with flags for half an hour.
And Ken, what is this, I've watched Big Bang Theory enough times to know, but what is this,
I was trying to remember the name of it.
Some-
Tea leaf.
somethingologist?
Yeah.
There is a name for the
There's a
study
name for designing flags.
of designing flags.
Okay. Anything else for my council? City manager?
We'll be back in here in the morning at
That's right.
8:30?
8:30.
Is that, I think that's right, 8:30, and it's kind of a long day.
It'll be a
That will
long
be-
day.
Vexiology.
Vexiology.
Yeah.
Okay. But we will be in here in the morning. Can we get a coffee, and since we won't have a full breakfast, we'll do like Rick, we'll eat before we come, but then we will have lunch brought in because we're working through.
Okay.
And, this is Kerry Mason and the Submarine Way crowd, and then we busted it up, as you remember, and we'll do another session on Monday of next week
Okay.
to get this knocked through.
So that's virtual, but we're going to be in here watching.
We're going to be in here watching. Kerry will be helping us virtually.
Okay. So we'll be on our screen here, I assume?
We won't. We will to him, but we
Right.
should meet here.
Right, we'll be
Local
going-
will
right.
meet here, right.
But
And
we'll be
and I'm
watching.
on quarantine until Thursday, so I'll meet virtually as well.
Okay,
Okay, good.
all right.
Thank you. Okay, I think this is our meeting, but I got really put a question to Eric and Rick, and not a retreat question, but it's something that we need to rectify.
Are we still streaming?
I can stop it.
Yeah, you stop it, yeah.
Okay.